Hello everyone, I am Nivedita Jena from Ambika Prasad Research Foundation. Welcome to all of you to our channel Biodiversity and Conservation. So today in this part we are going to discuss about the laws of limiting factors and how they influence organisms. So let's start. So each and every living organism has its specific surrounding medium or environment to which it continues and remains fully adapted. The environment is a collective term embracing all the conditions in which the organism lives and is the sum total of physiochemical or living conditions influencing the responses of the organisms. So, any part or condition of the environment that influences the life of one or more organisms can be termed as an ecological factor, environmental factor, eco-factor, or simply factor. They constitute any external force, substance, or condition which surrounds an organism and governs or affects the occurrence, distribution, behavior, or survival of species in an ecosystem. The environmental factors have been classified in several different ways. So, one is abiotic and biotic factors. Abiotic factors are the non-living components of a habitat. They are either physical or chemical factors that are the characteristic of the environment being studied. The abiotic factors in an ecosystem are grouped into soil, air, topography, meteorology, availability of water and quality of water. The meteorological factors are temperature, wind, sun, humidity, and precipitation. Many ecological studies have been done about the importance of the major abiotic factors which control the physical and biological components in an ecosystem at various ranges of time and space. The activities and growth of plants and animals are a result of several of these abiotic factors. And abiotic environmental factors influence organisms in various ways, um, like lethal, which is causing death, for example, extreme heat or cold, lack of moisture, and so forth. Then the next one is masking, modifying the effect of some other factor. Low relative humidity increases the rate of evaporation of moisture from body surfaces so that warm-blooded animals are able to survive at otherwise intolerably high air temperatures. The next one is directive, producing an orienting response in relation to some environmental response so that the animal gets itself into favorable condition. And controlling is the influencing the rate at which some processes function but not entering into the reaction. Temperature, pressure, and viscosity, for instance, affect metabolism, secretion, and locomotion. And the next one is deficient, which curtailing an activity because some essential ingredient such as salt, oxygen, or the like is absent or at unfavorably low concentration. And the same abiotic environmental factor may uh, produce different effects at different times under different conditions. Temperature may be lethal if extreme. Masking ash when cold reduces the demand of cold-blooded organisms for food. Directive by inducing a search for more favorable locations or controlling as the modifier of the rate of metabolism. Then the biotic factors are the aggregate of influences exerted on organisms by the life processes of other organisms. These influences are extremely varied. Living things may be a source of food for other organisms, serve as a habitat, aid reproduction, or have chemical, mechanical, and other effects. Unlike abiotic environmental factors, the action of biotic factors is manifested by the interaction of different species of organisms with others. For example, plants release oxygen, which is needed for the respiration of animals. While animals ensure the entry of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, carbon dioxide is used by plants in the process of photosynthesis. The activity of predators affects the dynamics of the abundance of their prey, and this affects, in turn, the size of predatory populations. The effect of biotic factors can be both direct and indirect, being reflected in the change in conditions of the surrounding inanimate environment. Then the second factor is density dependent and density independent factors. So density dependent factors operate only when the population density reaches a certain level. They regulate the growth of a population depending on its density. These factors operate most strongly when a population is large and dense. They do not affect small, scattered populations as greatly. For example, competition, predation, disease, parasitism, crowding, and stress are all factors that only affect population with high densities. And the density-dependent factors affect all populations in similar ways, regardless of the population size. Density-independent factors can affect a population no matter what its density is. For example, natural disasters, temperature, sunlight, human activities, physical characteristics, and behaviors of organisms affect any and all populations regardless of their densities. And the third factor is primary periodic, secondary periodic, and aperiodic factors. This classification is based on fluctuations of the factors connected with the Earth's movement in its orbit. Environmental factors whose connections with the Earth's movement is direct, such as temperature, amount of daylight, etc., are called primary periodic. Factors whose cyclical variations are dependent on the primary periodic factors are called secondary periodic factors, like atmospheric humidity, plant food supply, etc. Factors which exhibit fluctuations that are both violent and unpredictable are called aperiodic, for example, sudden drought, volcanic eruption, etc. Then, coming to the Leibniz's law of minimum, the central concept is to occur and thrive in a given situation, an organism must have essential materials which are necessary for growth and reproduction. These basic requirements vary with the species and with the situation. Under steady state conditions, the essential material available in amounts most closely approaching the critical minimum needed will tend to be the limiting one. This law of the minimum is less applicable under transient state conditions when the amounts and hence the effects of many constituents are rapidly changing. And the modern review of this Leibniz's law is Taylor expanded the Leibniz's law stating that the function of an organism is controlled or limited by the essential environmental factor or the combination of factors presented to in the last favorable amount. The factors may not be continually effective, but only at some critical period during the year or perhaps during some critical year in a climatic cycle. And the subsidiary principles of Leibniz's law states that extensive work since the time of Leibniz has shown that two subsidiary principles must be added to the concept if it is to be useful in practice. The principle one is strictly applicable only under steady-state conditions. That is, the law applies when inflows balance outflows of energy and materials. The truth of this statement can be heard from the example. Uh, for example, if we assume that carbon dioxide was the major limiting factor in a lake and productivity was therefore in equilibrium with the rate of supply of carbon dioxide coming from the decay of organic matter. Further, light, nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. were available in excess of use in the steady state equilibrium. And if a storm brought more carbon dioxide into the lake, the rate of production would change and be dependent upon other factors as well. While the rate is changing, there is no steady state and no minimum constituent. Instead, the reaction depends on the concentration of all constituents present, which in this transitional period differs from the rate at which the least plentiful is being added. The rate of production would change rapidly as various constituents were used of until some constituent, perhaps carbon dioxide again, became limiting and the lake system would once again be operating at the rate controlled by the law of minimum. So in next part we will discuss about the Selford's law of tolerance and many more. So stay tuned for the next part. Thank you.